Hi everybody, very welcome to Mentour Now. As always, I hope you're doing absolutely fantastic. Before we start today's video, I just want to publicly acknowledge that there are much more important things happening out there in the world right now that are not aviation related. The Russian attack on Ukraine is likely going to have far-reaching consequences for all of us going forward. But since the Mentour Now and the Mentour Pilot channel are aviation channels, I am going to focus my content on the way that this war is likely going to affect the aviation business. And having said that, we saw just last week how a lot of different countries, including the countries in the European Union, the United Kingdom and Canada, stopped Russian aircrafts, Russian airlines, and even aircraft that were registered as owned by certain people in the sphere around Putin from entering their airspace. Now, obviously, the direct effect of that is going to restrict the movement of these individuals, but it's also going to have a profound effect on the airlines that are operating out of Russia. But that's not what we're going to be talking about today. Instead, we will be focusing on the more stealthy, more insidious ways that this will affect the Russian aviation industry. Stay tuned. A huge thank you to CuriosityStream for sponsoring this video. In order to fully understand the more complex ways that these sanctions are likely going to affect the Russian aviation industry, I'm going to divide this video into three different areas. The first area that we're going to talk about is leasing. Very few airlines in the world today actually own all of the aircraft that they operate. Instead, they tend to have a fleet that combines a couple of aircraft that they own outright, but the majority of the aircraft they tend to lease from large leasing companies. There are many of these aircraft leasing companies out there in the world, but the biggest one of them all is an Irish-based company called AerCap. AerCap has close to 2,100 aircraft in their fleet. Now, let that sink in for you if you think about it. The latest sanctions imposed by the European Commission explicitly says that it prohibits the sale, transfer, supply or export of any aviation equipment to Russian companies. And this will definitely include leasing as well. The rules that the European Commission have put in force is that any contract that is found to be in breach with the current sanctions needs to be terminated within the next 30 days. That means that the deadline for these aviation leasing contracts is coming up on the 28th of March, which in the world of aviation is only a second away. So how much is the Russian aviation business going to suffer from this then? Well, just to give you an idea, all of the Russian airlines out there collectively operates about 980 aircraft right now. 2/3 of those, 515 of them, are leased from foreign companies. All of those aircraft are likely going to be affected by these sanctions. AerCap in Ireland, like I mentioned before, owns 152 of these aircraft. That is a market value of about $4.1 billion, or 5% of the total value that AerCap owns. Now, if these sanctions continue to apply, all of those aircraft are going to have to be returned to the lessors within the next month or so. Now, you might ask yourself, is that even legal? Like, are there any contractual obligations between the airlines and the lessors when it comes to situations like this? And it turns out that there actually are. In the leasing agreements, there are specific clauses for sanctions. In case the sanctions happen, the airlines are going to have to return the aircraft back to the leasing companies. How this is actually physically going to be done, as in how the leasing companies are going to physically get the aircraft from Russia to wherever they're going to park them, that's a different question. It's going to be a monumental task to do, because the companies are going to have to send over pilots and so on that can fly these aircraft, but even if they do, the airspaces are closed. And then on top of that, they might also have to deal with Russian authorities, which might not want this to happen at all. And it's unclear how the Russian airlines are going to react. But generally speaking, the Russian airlines knows that at some point, hopefully sooner than later, there's going to be an end to these sanctions. And when that does, these airlines want to be on the good side of these very powerful aircraft leasing companies. So it's unlikely that the airlines in themselves is going to put up much of a fight when this aircraft needs to be retrieved. Now let's say hypothetically that one of these Russian airlines were leasing their aircraft from a leasing company that was based in a country that did not have these sanctions in force. Even then there's going to be some big problems here because Russia is being more and more excluded from the SWIFT system, which is an incredibly important mechanism for settling large payments internationally. And on top of that, most of these leasing contracts are always paid in either euros or most likely in American dollars. And because these sanctions have really pummeled the value of the ruble, it means that these leasing contracts are now substantially more expensive than they were just a week ago. So that's the first point. Now the second point that I want to discuss here is also one of those things that you might not think about when you hear about sanctions. And I'll tell you all about that after this short message from my sponsor. The sponsor of this episode is CuriosityStream, and I am so proud that they have decided to come in and help support the work I do here on the Mentour Now channel, because I really think they have some absolutely fantastic content on their platform. For those of you who doesn't know, CuriosityStream is a high-quality subscription streaming service with thousands of fantastic non-fictional videos from some of the best filmmakers in the world. A video that I am watching right now is Heavy Lift, the Antonov dream about the Antonov 225, which obviously is really sad right now, but still very important to watch. If you think that this sounds interesting to you, then use the link in the description here below and the coupon code MentorNow. Make sure you use MentorNow so they know that you are coming from this channel. That will give you a whopping 25% discount of the yearly fee, which brings it down to only $14.99 per year, which is insane value for money. So go down, click on the link and start enjoying some of this great content after this video. The next hidden obstacle that's going to come with these sanctions has to do with the maintenance of existing aircraft. So let's say, for example, Aeroflot. They have about 50% of their aircraft leased and they own about 50% of them. So 50% of their fleet is now gone. It's gone back to the lessors. But the remaining 50%, if they want to continue to fly them, let's say that Russia, for example, continues to fly domestically and want to get a little bit of revenue that way, they are still going to have to maintain those aircraft. And in the case of Aeroflot, they have one of their largest maintenance stations in Germany. They are not going to be able to access that maintenance station. This means that some of the more complex and more large maintenance checks that the aircraft needs to go through will likely not be able to be done. And since that can't be done, it means that the remaining fleet of these Russian airlines is slowly but surely going to go out of check. Now, some of these maintenance actions can probably be done in MROs inside of Russia. But that brings us to the third point that I want to discuss, and that is spares. Since the sanctions specifically prohibit any sale of any product that has to do with the aviation business, that also means that spare part for things like avionics and engines and any parts of the aircraft really also cannot be sold. This will eventually come to affect virtually the entire Russian aviation industry. Maybe there are some older type of aircrafts that can still be used that were wholly manufactured inside of Russia, but even the brand new MC-21 aircraft that was just certified to fly within Russia, I think just before Christmas, still uses the Pratt & Whitney PW1400G engines. And those engines are definitely going to form part of these sanctions. Now, there is a Russian-made engine that could be fitted onto the MC-21, but that one is about 2 years away from being fully certified, so that's not going to be an option. Now, some of you will likely point out that they do have the Sukhoi Superjet, which is a pretty modern Russia-made airliner. But the issue there is that even though those engines that the Sukhoi Superjet uses are Russian-made, the hot parts of those engines are still made by Safran. So that means that whenever one of those engines needs to replace one of the internal units of the engine, that is also going to be covered by these sanctions. So what this means in reality is that unless there is a solution to this horrible war reasonably quickly, then it is likely that we will see the Russian aviation industry grind to a virtual 100% halt within a few months from now. Now, I'm going to continue to follow this conflict, and I'm going to create more videos here on the Mentour Now channel about how the aviation business is being affected, not only by this, but other things as well. So make sure that you have subscribed to this channel if you haven't already. If you want more nitty-gritty details, then I highly recommend you to go in and check out mentorpilot.com. We have daily articles being put out there about anything that goes on in the aviation business. And if you're really interested in it, then you should definitely have the Mentour Aviation app by now. There's a link to how to download it here in the description of the video, and we will push out anything that is interesting in aviation in there daily as well. I want to send a special thank you to Jon Ostrower from the Air Current and to Leeham News as well, which I use as sources for this video. You can go and check out their excellent articles in the description below. And why don't you go and check out this video next? You are going to find it really fascinating. If you want to support me, then consider supporting my sponsor by checking them out. But also, you can buy yourself some merch or become part of my Patreon family. Have an absolutely fantastic day, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.